Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. The exhaustion clung to Ethan Cole like the stale air of Mercy General's emergency room. 16 hours on his feet had left him bone-deep weary, but it was a clean kind of tired earned. 3 years had passed since he'd traded the controlled chaos of the special forces for the unpredictable intensity of trauma nursing. The discipline, the constant pressure, the weight of lives, it all clicked into place for him in a way the civilian world rarely did. August heat radiated off the asphalt as Ethan slid into his pickup. He glanced at his phone. No messages from Ava. Not a surprise these days. 5 years of marriage, and the last 6 months had been a slow drift into silence. He'd told himself it was just the demands of her new job at the marketing firm, the late nights, the weekend team-building retreats, the constant stream of texts she'd angle away when he entered the room. Work stress, she'd said, and he'd wanted to believe her, or at least pretended to. He drove past their old favorite Thai restaurant, the place where they'd first met, his foot instinctively easing off the gas. But he decided against getting takeout again. The last few times, the food had sat untouched in the fridge until he'd finally thrown it out. The ranch-style house they'd bought 2 years ago came into view. Ethan frowned. An unfamiliar black Audi occupied his usual spot in the driveway. Ava hadn't mentioned having company. As he pulled in, a flicker of movement caught his eye. Large black garbage bags were scattered across the front lawn. A tall, muscular man with a tattooed arm tossed another bag onto the growing pile. Beside him stood Ava, her blonde hair pulled back, gesturing with an animation he hadn't seen in months. Ethan got out of his truck, confusion hardening into a cold, sharp clarity as he approached. Ava's laughter died in her throat when she saw him. "You're home early," she said, crossing her arms defensively. 16 hours is early, Ethan replied, his gaze flicking over the bulging garbage bags. "Something about their shape. What's going on?" The tattooed man smirked, a flash of familiarity sparking in Ethan's mind. Where had he seen that face before? "Ethan, you remember Marcus, right? From college." And then it hit him. Marcus Thorne, Ava's ex-boyfriend. The one she drunkenly confessed 3 years ago was the one that got away. "What's in the bags?" Ethan asked, though he already knew. Ava's smile was tight, brittle. "We needed your closet for Marcus's things." Ethan stared at her, waiting for the punchline, for the sign that this was some kind of cruel joke. "How long is he staying?" he finally asked, the words feeling foreign on his tongue. They both laughed, Marcus draping an arm possessively around Ava's shoulders. "Permanently, of course," Marcus answered, as if Ethan were slow on the uptake. Ethan stood perfectly still, a stillness honed by years of training, a stillness that had kept him alive in places where movement was a death sentence. His mind raced, assessing, calculating. "I see." That was all he said. Ava's smile wavered. She'd expected tears, shouting, maybe even a fight. The unnerving calm on Ethan's face seemed to unsettle her. "Your stuff's all there." She gestured towards the bags. "I packed everything." "That was considerate," Ethan replied, his voice flat. He turned back to his truck, opened the passenger door, and retrieved a small go-bag he always kept there. Another habit ingrained from his military days. Without another word, he began loading the garbage bags into the bed of his pickup. Marcus and Ava exchanged confused glances, taken aback by his lack of reaction. "That's it," Ava called out. "You're just leaving?" Ethan secured the last bag and closed the tailgate. "Yes," he said simply, climbing into the driver's seat. He caught Marcus's reflection in the side mirror. The man was whispering something in Ava's ear, both of them snickering. Ethan drove away quietly, the weight of the betrayal settling in his chest like a stone. By nightfall, he checked into a motel on the outskirts of town, his few possessions stacked neatly in the corner of the impersonal room. He sat on the edge of the bed, still in his scrubs, and made a single phone call. "Liam," he said when the line connected. "It's Ethan. I need a favor." The storage unit was exactly as Ethan remembered it. Tucked away in a forgotten corner of an industrial district, boasting minimal security cameras and an owner who preferred cash and asked no questions. 3 years ago, when he'd left the Special Forces, his commanding officer had warned him, "The civilian world isn't built for men like us, Cole. Keep an exit strategy." So he had. Liam Walker leaned against his Jeep, a plume of smoke curling from his cigarette as Ethan wrestled with the stubborn padlock. The two men had served in the same unit for 6 years, surviving 3 deployments side by side. While Ethan had chosen a path of healing, hoping to mend what he once helped break, Liam had parlayed his military skills into a thriving private security business. "Didn't think you'd ever need this place?" Liam commented as the metal door groaned open. The unit held a metal footlocker, a battered filing cabinet, and several heavy-duty waterproof containers. Ethan flicked on a flashlight and stepped inside. "Neither did I." "You going to tell me what happened?" Liam asked, his voice laced with concern. Ethan opened the footlocker. Inside lay specialized equipment and a collection of identity documents. 3 different driver's licenses, passports, credit cards. He'd set everything up during those first few months of civilian life, when the nightmares still clung to him, when he'd been unsure if he could truly adapt, when he'd been afraid of the man he used to be. "Ava moved her ex-boyfriend into our house," Ethan said, his voice flat, clinical. "Threw my things on the lawn." Liam whistled low. "Brother, that's cold. What do you need?" "I've got a spare room." "Information first." Ethan pulled out a laptop and flipped it open. "I need to know everything about Marcus Thorne." Over the next 3 days, Ethan became a ghost. He didn't show up for his shifts at the hospital. He ignored Ava's increasingly frantic texts, first angry accusations, then confused questions, and finally, worried pleas just to let her know he was alive. He and Liam worked methodically, building a comprehensive profile of Marcus Thorne. 34 years old, a former semi-professional boxer who'd never quite broken through. Multiple assault charges that had mysteriously vanished from the records. Currently working as a consultant for a local businessman with suspected ties to money laundering. "He's bad news," Liam concluded, scrolling through financial records. "How'd your wife even reconnect with this guy?" Ethan stared at a grainy surveillance photo of Marcus leaving an underground casino. "That's what I'd like to know." The answer surfaced on day 4. Ava's social media revealed she'd started a new marketing campaign for a chain of gyms. The owner, Viktor Volkov, the same businessman Marcus worked for. "It's not a coincidence," Ethan said, connecting the dots. Marcus used his connection to Volkov to get Ava the contract. That's how they reconnected. What truly intrigued Ethan, however, was what he found in Volkov's background. A Russian immigrant with suspected ties to organized crime and, most importantly, a chilling reputation for eliminating problems permanently. "Your wife might be in danger, Ethan," Liam pointed out, his brow furrowed. "If this Marcus guy is using her to access your house for something related to Volkov's operation." Ethan closed the laptop. "It's not my house anymore." Liam studied his friend's face, his expression unreadable. "What are you planning, Ethan?" "I'm not sure yet," Ethan replied, his gaze distant. "But I think it's time I paid Marcus a visit." Ethan observed the house, his house, for 2 days from a vacant property across the street. He tracked the comings and goings, noting the patterns. Ava left for work at 8:15 a.m. Returning around 6:30 p.m. Marcus kept irregular hours, sometimes disappearing for entire nights. On the 3rd morning of his surveillance, Ethan noticed something out of place. A delivery truck arrived. 2 men carried in several heavy crates. Marcus supervised, signing for the delivery, then made 3 phone calls in rapid succession. Through a directional microphone, Ethan caught fragments. Secured the location. Wife doesn't suspect. Timeline moved up. 3 days max. That night, when Marcus left the house at 11 p.m., Ethan followed. The man drove to an industrial warehouse, where he met with Volkov and 3 other men. They spent 2 hours inside, then dispersed. But instead of returning home, Marcus drove to a strip club on the edge of town. Ethan waited in the parking lot. At 3 a.m., Marcus emerged, clearly intoxicated, with a woman on each arm. He dismissed them brusquely when they asked for payment, shoving one hard enough that she stumbled. As they cursed after him, Marcus staggered towards his car. Perfect timing. Need a ride? Ethan asked, stepping out of the shadows. Marcus squinted, recognition slowly dawning in his bleary eyes. You're the husband? He slurred. The nurse boy, or whatever. Actually, Ethan corrected, his voice calm. 12 years in special forces before nursing. Marcus snorted. Whatever. What the hell do you want to talk about? Ethan nodded towards a 24-hour diner across the street. Coffee might help sober you up. Curiosity, fueled by alcohol, overcame caution. Marcus followed Ethan to the diner, where they took a booth in the back. The overnight waitress brought 2 coffees and retreated, sensing the palpable tension. I found my clothes and garbage bags on the lawn after working a double shift, Ethan said conversationally, stirring his coffee. My wife texted. We needed your closet for my ex-boyfriend's things. When I asked how long he was staying, he paused, letting the words hang in the air. They both laughed. Permanently, of course. Marcus smirked. You should have seen your face, man. I left quietly, Ethan continued, his gaze unwavering. But I've been watching, and I know Volkov has you storing something in my house. Something that's moving in 3 days. The smirk vanished. Marcus's eyes narrowed. You don't know what you're talking about. Weapons, drugs, whatever it is, Ava's fingerprints are all over it now. When the feds come knocking, and they will, she goes down with you. There won't be any feds, Marcus growled, leaning forward menacingly. Ethan leaned forward as well, his voice dropping. Unless someone tips them off. A tense silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. What do you want? Marcus finally asked, the bravado in his voice starting to crack. I want you to understand something, Ethan said, his voice low and dangerous. I survived 3 tours in places where death came from clear skies. I've killed men who never saw me coming. And I was very, very good at my job. He slid a burner phone across the table. This has evidence of everything you and Volkov are planning. In 3 days, it automatically uploads to federal servers unless I enter a code. Marcus's face darkened with rage. You think I won't find where you're hiding that? That we won't shut you up permanently? Ethan smiled, a cold, unsettling smile that never reached his eyes. I'm counting on you to try. He stood up, tossed some cash on the table. 3 days, Marcus. Choose wisely. As Ethan walked away, Marcus called after him, his voice laced with venom. Your wife never loved you. She was always waiting for me to come back. Ethan didn't turn around. The trap was set. Liam's expression was grim as Ethan recounted his encounter with Marcus. You basically painted a target on your back, he said, his gaze sharp with concern. Volkov isn't someone to mess with. They sat in a secure apartment Liam kept for clients who needed to disappear for a while. The walls were soundproofed, the windows bulletproof, and a complex security system hummed quietly in the background. I'm counting on Marcus to panic, Ethan replied, his voice steady despite the undercurrent of tension. He'll go to Volkov. He'll want me eliminated before their operation concludes. And that helps you how exactly? Liam asked, his skepticism evident. Ethan unfolded a map of the city on the coffee table. Because while they're hunting me, I'll be preparing the real trap. Over the next 24 hours, Ethan's prediction unfolded with chilling accuracy. Through Liam's network of contacts, they learned that Volkov had indeed put out feelers, seeking any information on Ethan's whereabouts. 2 men had been spotted watching the hospital where Ethan used to work. Meanwhile, Ethan called in favors from people he'd helped during his nursing career. A pharmacy technician, indebted to him for covering up a potentially career-ending dispensing error, discreetly provided certain medications. A former patient who'd battled his way back from opioid addiction with Ethan's unwavering support, offered his skills as a locksmith. You never told me why they chose your house, Liam commented one evening as they assembled various pieces of equipment. Seems like a huge risk for whatever they're planning. Ethan paused, his gaze distant. It's the location, Our house backs up to the state forest. There's a service road half a mile through the woods that connects directly to the interstate. Perfect for moving something without being seen. What about Ava? You think she's involved willingly? The question hung heavy in the air between them. Despite everything, Ethan had been deliberately avoiding this particular line of thought. I don't know, he finally admitted, his voice low, but I'm going to find out. That night, while Marcus was meeting with Volkov at a dimly lit bar downtown, Ethan slipped back into his former home. He used a basement window he'd deliberately left with a faulty lock years ago. Another ingrained habit from his military days, always having a back door. The house felt alien, permeated with Marcus's presence. His clothes hung in Ethan's closet. His toiletries cluttered the bathroom counter. Photos of Ethan had been removed, replaced with new ones of Ava and Marcus, their smiles jarringly out of place. In the guest bedroom, Ethan found what he was looking for: the heavy crates. Using specialized tools, he opened one without disturbing the seal. Inside, tightly wrapped packages confirmed his suspicions: high-grade heroin, millions of dollars worth. As he carefully resealed the crate, he heard the front door open. Moving quickly and silently, Ethan slipped into the master bedroom closet, concealing himself behind hanging clothes. Ava entered alone, dropping her purse heavily on the bed with a weary sigh. She paced the room, then pulled out her phone and dialed. "Mom, it's me," she said, her voice strained, barely a whisper. "No, he still hasn't contacted anyone. I know it's been a week. Of course, I feel terrible." She paused, listening. "You don't understand. Marcus said it was just temporary, that we needed a secure location for some merchandise. No, I didn't know what it was at first. By the time I realized, I was already in too deep." Another pause, a choked sob. "I can't go to the police. Marcus made it clear what would happen." Her voice broke. "I never wanted to hurt Ethan. He deserved better than this." After she hung up, Ava sank onto the bed, burying her face in her hands and weeping. Ethan remained motionless in the closet, listening to his wife's raw, unfiltered grief, trying to reconcile it with the woman who had laughed as his possessions were tossed onto the lawn. When she finally left the room, Ethan slipped out the way he had come, carrying with him a small sample from one of the packages and something else. A single strand of Ava's hair he'd taken from her brush. "You got what you needed?" Liam asked when Ethan returned to the safe apartment. "More than I expected," Ethan replied, his expression unreadable. Marcus Thorne was not a patient man. The waiting was a gnawing anxiety, a constant hum of unease. Cooped up in Ethan's house with Ava's increasingly frayed nerves, the 3 days Ethan had mentioned felt like an eternity. It had been 2 already, and despite Volkov's men scouring the city, Ethan Cole had vanished without a trace. "He's bluffing," Marcus told himself, pacing the living room. "There's no evidence, no phone, nothing to upload." But doubt, a persistent shadow, flickered at the edges of his confidence. He'd underestimated Ethan from the beginning, dismissing him as a soft civilian. The cold, calculating look in the man's eyes at the diner now haunted him. This wasn't just some heartbroken husband. This was a trained operator who'd gone to ground at the first sign of trouble. Ava entered the living room, her arms wrapped protectively around herself. "Marcus, we need to talk about what happens after everything's done." "Not now," he snapped, his nerves raw. "Like my husband?" she asked quietly, her voice laced with a dangerous edge. Marcus rounded on her, his temper flaring. "Your husband is nothing. A nobody who got lucky in the military and came back to play nurse. Then why are you so scared of him?" The slap was reflexive, hard enough to make Ava stumble back, her hand flying to her stinging cheek. Her eyes widened, a mixture of shock and hurt. "I'm not scared," Marcus hissed, his face inches from hers. "I'm cautious. There's a difference." His phone rang, a jarring interruption. "Volkov," he muttered, stepping outside to take the call, leaving Ava staring after him, something cold and resolute hardening in her expression. Meanwhile, miles away, Ethan and Liam were executing the next phase of their plan. They'd identified Volkov's two main lieutenants, Julian Vance, a former intelligence contractor with a weakness for expensive whiskey, and Dmitry Volkov, Victor's nephew, known for his ruthlessness and unwavering loyalty. Divide and conquer, Ethan explained grimly as they watched Julian enter his favorite upscale bar. The organization fractures when the leadership can't trust each other. Inside, Liam took a seat next to Julian at the bar, ordering the same rare single malt. He struck up a casual conversation about fine spirits, his easy charm disarming. 20 minutes later, when Julian excused himself to use the restroom, Liam slipped a small, potent substance into his drink. The next morning, Julian woke in a cheap motel room with no memory of how he'd gotten there. Only a burner phone on the nightstand with a single text. Insurance files sent to Volkov. Need to meet your office. Noon. Simultaneously, Dmitry received an anonymous package containing surveillance photos of Julian meeting with a known FBI informant, along with meticulously forged bank statements showing large deposits to an offshore account. By noon, Volkov's organization was in chaos. Julian and Dmitry were vehemently accusing each other of betrayal, while Volkov struggled to maintain control. The weapons shipment, the one that was supposed to accompany the drugs in 3 days, was postponed indefinitely. They're scrambling, Liam reported, relaying information from his contacts. Volkov's pulled men off the search for you to deal with the internal threat. Ethan nodded, a grim satisfaction tightening his jaw. Perfect. Now we need the final piece. He pulled out a burner phone and made a call to a number he'd memorized years ago. Colonel Davies, it's Cole. I need to call in that favor you owe me. The next day, Agent Sarah Miller of the DEA received an anonymous tip about a major drug shipment, complete with detailed information about the location, quantity, and key players involved. What particularly piqued her interest was the tipster's claim that a rogue former soldier was planning to intercept the shipment for himself. We have a potential bloodbath brewing, she told her team, her voice serious. We move tomorrow night. As evening fell, Ethan meticulously prepared the final elements of his plan in Liam's secure apartment. On a sterile surface, he laid out several syringes filled with a carefully measured compound. What exactly is that, Ethan? Liam asked, eyeing the syringes with unease. A cocktail, Ethan replied, his voice flat. Scopolamine, ketamine, and a few other things. Untraceable and standard tox screens break it down quickly in the body. Jesus, Ethan, are you sure about this? Liam's concern was palpable. Ethan's eyes were cold as he packed the syringes into a specialized case. Marcus made his choice when he moved into my house. Ava made hers when she put my things on the lawn. And what about your choice, Ethan? Liam pressed, his gaze unwavering. This crosses a line. I crossed that line years ago, Liam, in places you've never been. Ethan replied quietly, his voice devoid of emotion. The difference is, this time, I'm choosing who deserves it. Thanks for listening. This story isn't over yet, and things are about to get even more intense. Stay tuned for the next part to see what happens next.